A motion is a formal proposal by a member of a deliberative assembly. Today, we'll learn different types of motion, main motion and secondary motions. Secondary motion also include subsidiary motions, privileged motions, and incidental motions. We'll look at different types of motions through the lens of a committee meeting. Here is a scenario. You are the presiding officer at a committee meeting, and the committee consists of faculty from different departments, administrative staff, and a couple of student representatives. The big topic on the meeting agenda, overhauling the curriculum. After call to order, roll call, approval of previous minutes and reports, Dr. Smith, a history professor, makes the first formal proposal or main motion by saying, I move that we revamp the curriculum to include more courses on global history. In the context of a deliberative assembly, in this case a committee meeting, a main motion is the starting point for any structured discussion or action. It's the formal proposal brought forth by a member that sets the agenda for what is to be discussed or decided upon. A main motion is generally broad in nature and serves as a foundational statement that shapes the direction of the meeting's debate and subsequent decisions. The main motion requires a seconding motion unless the assembly's rules state otherwise, and is then subjected to debate, amendment, and ultimately a vote. In the committee meeting discussing overhauling the curriculum, Dr. Smith effectively introduced a main motion, putting forth a specific proposal, which is to include more courses on global history. Main motions are important because they set the agenda, allowing the assembly to focus on specific issues, discuss them, and make collective decisions. Without main motions, meetings could become chaotic and lack structure because there would be no formal way to propose actions or decisions. Imagine sitting in a meeting with no main motion on the table, and the conversation feels like a jigsaw puzzle with missing pieces. Rather than a focused dialogue, discussions meander aimlessly, leaving everyone in the maze of fragmented ideas. By the time the meeting adjourns, no concrete actions were made. You realize that the meeting has served more as a public venting session than a constructive meeting. At this point, you are left questioning the meeting's purpose and your own participation. Is this a worthwhile use of your time? Should you even attend future sessions like this? Time is a limited resource. The absence of main motions turns meetings into a black hole of inefficiency. This black hole paralyzes any effort to advance projects, revise policies, or take a stand on pressing issues. Everyone gets sucked into chaos and unproductive discussions. This not only wastes valuable time, but also sows the seeds of doubt about the necessity of such gatherings in the first place. Use main motions as the guiding force in your meeting. The very essence of a structured meeting lies in decision-making, and main motions serve as the linchpin that holds this process together. Incorporating main motions into your meeting structure helps you navigate the conversation with clarity and purpose. As the presiding officer, your role is to guide the meeting effectively. One way to prompt the structured form of discussion is by asking for a main motion when the discussion gets fragmented and unstructured. You can say, may I have a motion? This invites a formal proposal that can steer the conversation in a focused direction. If the motion is seconded, then the motion is open for discussion, and you can proceed to facilitate a more organized debate around the topic. If no motion is proposed, it may indicate a lack of consensus or interest in the topic, or that the committee is not ready to make a decision at this time. In this case, you have a couple of options. First, prompt further clarification. If you feel that the committee is close to making a motion but needs a nudge in the right direction, you can say, before we move on, are there any clarifications or additional information needed that could help us arrive at a motion? This gives committee members the opportunity to request or provide further details in order to make a motion. Second, open floor for general comments. Sometimes opening the floor for general comments can stimulate more focused ideas that could turn into a motion. You can say, since there are no formal motions at this time, would anyone like to offer general thoughts on this topic for future consideration? Third, direct inquiry to individual members. Sometimes directly asking a member for their input can jumpstart the motion process. You can say, Jane, you have expertise in this area. Do you think a motion is warranted at this time, or should we proceed differently? Fourth, referring to a subcommittee. If the issue is complex and requires more detailed investigation, you could propose creating a subcommittee to dive deeper into the topic. You can say, as no motion has been made, would it be beneficial to assign this topic to a subcommittee for more detailed study? Fifth, table the discussion. If it is evident that the committee won't reach a decision during the current meeting, you can direct attention toward future opportunities. You can say, seeing as there is no motion on the floor, shall we table this discussion for a future meeting? If there is agreement, you can then proceed to the next agenda item. In the scenario of meeting of overhauling curriculum, after Dr. Smith's motion is seconded, the motion is open for discussion. During the discussion, another committee member, Dr. Lee, a science professor, wishes to refine the main motion. Dr. Lee says, while I appreciate Dr. Smith's motion, I'd like to propose an amendment. I move to amend the motion to also include more interdisciplinary courses, including the sciences. Here, Dr. Lee introduces a subsidiary motion. Dr. Lee's amendment suggests expanding the curriculum overhaul to include more interdisciplinary courses, incorporating not just history, but also the sciences. The goal is to refine Dr. Smith's original motion, offering a more comprehensive approach to curriculum overhaul. Subsidiary motions help the assembly fine-tune the details of the main motion, making it more suitable for implementation if passed. Once an amendment or any other subsidiary motion is proposed, it needs to be seconded and then discussed and voted upon before returning to the main motion. If the amendment is passed, the main motion is modified accordingly, and discussion resumes on the newly amended main motion. Amendments can be further amended subject to the rules of the assembly, but each amendment must be disposed of, either passed or defeated, before the assembly can return the deliberation on the original or amended main motion. As the discussion progresses, you notice the clock and remember that the meeting room is booked for another event soon after your allotted time. You can say, as the clock ticks closer to the end of our allotted time, I invite any privileged motions related to table all discussion until the next scheduled meeting. In situations where time is of the essence, privileged motions can be particularly useful. Privileged motions are types of motions that don't relate directly to the main motion, but deal with urgent or important matters that must be considered immediately, often overriding any other pending business. In this case, needing to vacate the room due to a time constraint would justify the use of a privileged motion. In addition to time constraint, privileged motions are commonly used in a variety of scenarios. If a discussion on an agenda item goes on for an extended period without coming to a resolution, you can say, as we've exceeded the time allotted for this discussion, I invite a privileged motion to either extend the time or to table the discussion. When a sensitive issue comes up that requires privacy, a privileged motion can be made to go into a closed session. You can say, due to the confidential nature of the next general item, I would entertain a privileged motion to go into closed session. In essence, privileged motions take precedence. They override ongoing discussion of the main motion or other matters at hand. Let's go back to the subsidiary motion made by Dr. Lee. It's seconded and open for discussion. During the debate, a procedural question arises about the voting method to be used. Jack, a student representative, says, considering the significance of those curriculum changes, I move that we use a secret ballot for the voting process. Here, Jack's proposal for a secret ballot is an incidental motion. Incidental motions are motions that arise incidentally and are decided immediately, often relating to the procedures or rules guiding the meeting or a specific item under discussion. They do not stand alone, but are connected to other motions like subsidiary or main motions or issues that are immediately pending. Jack's motion for a secret ballot comes up during the discussion of Dr. Lee's subsidiary motion, which in turn is about amending Dr. Smith's main motion. In this case, the procedural question about the voting method is a point that needs immediate resolution to proceed with the pending business, namely the vote on the subsidiary motion made by Dr. Lee, which is to include both the global history and the sciences courses. Incidental motions are always tied to another pending motion or a procedural aspect of the meeting. Unlike privileged motions, incidental motions do not stand alone and decided right away so that the assembly can return to its other businesses. Incidental motions are commonly used in meetings. One example is a point of order. Suppose a member proposes a new budget, and the presiding officer immediately asks for a vote without waiting for the motion to be formally made and seconded. In this case, any member can raise a point of order to ensure the meeting's rules are correctly followed. As a committee member, you can intervene by stating, point of order, the motion has not been properly made or seconded. By doing so, you are formally requesting that the chair corrects the procedural oversight and ensures that the rules for motions and voting are adhered to. This helps maintain the integrity of the meeting process. Otherwise, the approval of the budget could be rushed and may even be manipulated, undermining the committee's decision-making process. Incidental motions can be used to suspend the rules. This motion allows members to temporarily bypass certain rules to achieve something otherwise restricted. For example, if a guest speaker is present and the committee wishes to hear their insights, the member can say, I move to suspend the rules to allow our guest to speak. This enables the committee to make an exception in the interest of enriching the discussion or facilitating decision-making. A third type of incidental motion is the objection to the consideration of a question. This comes into play when a committee member believes a main motion could be inappropriate or potentially harmful. Let's say a new budget proposal is hastily introduced that drastically cuts funding to essential resources. Before the discussion even begins, you can intervene by saying, I object to the consideration of the motion. By doing so, you prompt the committee to pause and carefully consider the proposed budget. This prevents the committee from diving into a potentially unproductive and damaging debate without first evaluating the merits and consequences of the proposed action. If your incidental motion is seconded, the presiding officer usually put the question to a vote immediately, unless discussion is deemed necessary. The outcome of the vote will determine whether the incidental motion is adopted or rejected. The adoption of an incidental motion usually requires only a simple majority, but there are exceptions, such as in cases where the incidental motion proposes to suspend certain rules. Suspending the rules often requires a 2/3 majority vote to pass, unless otherwise stated in the governing document of the assembly, like bylaws. If no one seconds your incidental motion, the presiding officer may declare the motion has failed due to a lack of second, and the assembly will proceed to the next order of business. This is a way of quickly filtering out motions that have minimal support. However, not all incidental motions require a second. For example, point of order does not need to be seconded. In this case, the presiding officer must still rule on the validity of the point raised, even if no one else indicates support. In this video, I introduce different types of motions. Main motion sets a foundational topic for discussion and decision, giving us a focal point for discussion and resolution. Subsidiary motion allows us to fine-tune those main motions, ensuring they are as effective as possible. Privileged motions offer us a way to handle urgent matters that may arise, even if they're not directly related to the main topic at hand. Incidental motions help us navigate procedural bumps in the road, maintaining the integrity of the meeting process. Each type of motion serves a unique purpose, but all work together to create a coherent democratic decision-making structure. I encourage you to practice them in your own meetings and see if you can turn potentially chaotic and unproductive discussions into streamlined, action-oriented dialogues. So go ahead and make your meetings work for you rather than against you.